So I get a lot of questions of people wondering how to identify mushrooms and go out in the woods and find mushrooms and do the whole foraging thing. And the first thing I want to say is that foraging for me is just like now intertwined into my life. It's like if I'm driving, I'm foraging. If I'm going for a swim, I'm foraging. If I'm hanging out with friends, it's just like always looking for mushrooms because they're everywhere. You know, it's not like they just live like deep way in the woods. It's like you'll find them in cities, in parks, and like just right next to the road. So the first thing is just to like open up your eyes to seeing mushrooms and just kind of like allowing that lens to kind of turn on and be like, cool, I'm open to finding a mushroom whenever, you know, and letting that curiosity come out of just like, oh cool, what is this mushroom? And now with apps like iNaturalist or other things, it's pretty easy to like make a little identification, just to be like, okay, this is what this mushroom is. But if you were really like focused on going out to find a wild edible mushroom, the first thing to know is when does it fruit and where does it like to fruit. So in this video, we're going to talk about 5 or 6 really common, easy to find, easy to identify wild edible mushrooms that after you'll have the confidence to be like, okay, this is when I'd go look for them, where I would look, and the key features that I'd look at to know this is the right mushroom. The mushroom itself is a temple of copulation. It's a place where sexual reproduction happens. And this is the first thing that you look at when you're thinking about how to identify the mushroom, is what are the spores on? Like where are the spores located in the mushroom? So this one that I'm sitting above, this is a artist conch, and underneath are little pores. So you have these little pores that the spores, the offspring of the mushroom, are dropping out of. There's other mushrooms that are really common that have, you know, gills or teeth or puffballs where they're just like a ball of spores. So there's lots of different ways that mushrooms disseminate their spores. But that's your number one thing to look at when thinking about identification. Next up is kind of getting more details of the mushroom. What are the colors? What is it growing out of? Is it a cap and stem, or is it like a shelf fungus like this? Those are all really important things to look at for identification. But let's walk through those 6 really easy to know and identify mushrooms. So chicken of the woods is one of the best ones to know. It fruits really abundantly and is super easy to identify. It grows on primarily oak, anywhere from living to dead trees and like pretty decomposed. It's a shelf fungus like these guys where they're growing out the side of the tree, and the top is a bright orange color and the bottom is either yellow or white, and there are pores on the bottom. Really tasty, especially when it's a young mushroom. It's so delicious. And fruits a fair amount of the year. Up here in New England, it's basically from May all the way through November, and primarily in the like September-October range is when you find the most of it. Yeah, delicious stir-fried or grilled or baked. You can bread it, make chicken nuggets. So good. And the thing I like about it is you can find like 15 pounds of it, you know. And chicken in the woods will fruit year after year in the same spot. So say you find it July 15th one year, then I would start going back to that spot like a week before or a week after, to check and see if it's coming up again. So chicken of the woods, your number 1 mushroom for knowing and identifying. Number 2 is hen of the woods. And this is a totally different mushroom, different poultry of the woods, hen of the woods, Grifola frondosa. Another common name is maitake, and maitake is dancing mushroom. Maitake is a Japanese word. I think mai is dancing, and taki is the Japanese word for mushroom. So you see that at the end of a lot of different mushroom names. Because you do a dance when you find it. You're like so excited that you're like, yeah, I got the maitake! So it's called a dancing mushroom. It fruits pretty much exclusively like Midwest to the East Coast. Sorry, West Coasters, you have to come visit and get your maitake here. And it fruits at the base of big old oak trees in September, October. There's a couple of lookalikes that aren't poisonous, but people confuse maitake with, and they fruit a little bit earlier. So they fruit in like July or August. So there's black staining polypore. This one stains black on the base of it, and it tastes like rubber tires. I've eaten it, and it's just like, oh, what is this? Why are we eating this? Not good. But maitake is fruiting September, October, the base of oak trees. It fruits out of one, kind of like one stem, and then has all these little leaflets that kind of branch out from it. It's a polypore, and it's typically kind of a gray, white, blackish color on top and white on the bottom. So maitake is a little bit more firm than chicken of the woods. Also really good, like breaded in the little fronds and fried or just sauteed up. And maitake is an amazing medicinal mushroom. So drying it, making tea, making tinctures is fantastic for this mushroom if you have more than what you can eat. You can also grow maitake, so you can grow it outdoors, burying like blocks of mycelium. If you bury those in July, you can have fruiting in September or October. So your number 2 mushroom for identification is maitake, hen of the woods, Grifola frondosa. Okay, number 3 is pretty common mushroom, oyster mushroom, Pleurotus ostriatus. There's a bunch of different species, but pretty much all in the Pleurotus genus. Up here in New England, they really like to grow on sugar maples. So for a long time, you know, back in the 1800s, early 1900s, sugar maples were planted as a street tree. And now, as they're starting to die, you have a lot of oyster mushrooms starting to fruit off of them. But they're really a generalist. They'll eat pretty much any sort of hardwood. A lot of times, mainly towards softer hardwoods, things like aspen or birch or elm. You know, things that are breaking down a little bit more rapidly, the oysters will get into and start consuming. Typically a white kind of shellfish mushroom. There's not much of a stem to it, and there's gills on the underside. So it's a gilled mushroom, pretty much no stem, but a nice thick cap. They can get a little bit buggy, so it's better to pick them in the fall or early spring. And if you see them in the summertime, get them early so that they don't get a bunch of maggots and gross stuff in them. Third mushroom is the oyster mushroom, Pleurotus ostriatus. Number 4 is black trumpets. And this Latin it's like a tongue twister. It's hard to get through. It's like Chanterelle cornucopoides, something like that. Latin pronunciation is always tough, but it's like the horn of plenty. And this mushroom is one of my favorite mushrooms to find. It's one of those mushrooms where you don't see it. You're like, oh, I can't find it. And then you see 1, and then you see 2, and then you see 10, and then it's like, oh my God, the forest floor is covered in black trumpets. You know, and just this like, moment. So really fun mushroom to find. It fruits typically starting in July, September, October. It's a relative to Chanterelle, so similar fruiting cycle or like location. The mushrooms are about anywhere from like 2 to 5 inches tall, black gray, and are single stemmed and kind of have this like a trumpet shape, like a horn coming out of the ground. They are so fragrant, so amazingly fragrant. The best smelling mushroom that I've gotten to smell. And a good one if you're ever interested in training dogs, to try and train a dog to find. Fantastic sauteed or great dried, a really good mushroom to infuse vodka or alcohol with. Just has that aroma and flavor that gets into the alcohol. So go out after heavy rainfalls in July, August. I've seen it mostly in sides of trails, like out of mossy patches, or where there's a hemlock overstory and then little beech saplings. And just coming out of the leaf litter there is where you'll find the mushrooms. And they also tend to like a hill, like somewhere where the water is running down. So look for those spots. One of the things when you're looking for these mushrooms is it's like best to look for the habitat where the mushroom would grow than for the mushrooms themselves. You know, it's like, oh, there's a dead oak. Do I see chicken in the woods? Or, okay, I know where there's a huge oak forest. I'm going to go there and look for chicken in the woods. Or, oh, wow, there's a big patch of hemlock. I'm going to go there and look for black trumpets. Again, they're a mushroom that fruits year after year in the same place. So you can go back and look for them again and see if they come out. So your fifth mushroom is Chanterelle in the genus Chanterelle. And this mushroom is an orange mushroom that fruits out of the ground, typically under oak trees. So it's a mycorrhizal mushroom, meaning that it's creating a symbiotic relationship with the plant roots, and it trades, you know, nutrients and water for sugars from the plant. So this mushroom usually fruits in like end of June through August, September up here in Massachusetts. Is a delicious edible, and you can find it in kind of small quantities to pretty numerous. It's nice when you're harvesting chanterelles to cut the bottom. It's the same thing with black trumpets, because when you pick them, you pick the dirt out as well, so things just start to get dirty and messy. And so it's nice to just cut them, leave the mycelium underneath undisturbed, and put that in your basket. Sometimes some people mistake chanterelles with jack-o'-lanterns, and big key difference is that jack-o'-lanterns grow out of wood, logs like this, and chanterelles are growing out of the ground. And chanterelles have more, they have kind of like fake gills. They're more like ridges, and jack-o'-lanterns have proper gills, and a lot of times are coming out of a cluster. So make sure, just 100% sure, that your chanterelles aren't being confused with jack-o'-lanterns. And jack-o'-lanterns are a cool one. You can actually, if you go in a really, really dark night, the gills glow a little bit. So it's not like, whoa, that thing's glowing, I can see it from a mile away. But if you get close underneath, you can see a little light coming from the gills of jack-o'-lanterns. So don't confuse your chanterelles with jack-o'-lanterns. But delicious summer mushroom, awesome in stir fries, fantastic mushroom. So that's your fifth mushroom, chanterelles. Your last mushroom, number 6, is Morels, Morchella esculenta. Delicious, delicious mushroom. Everyone's always gets the morel craze in the spring. It's like, yo, morels, who's got morels? And some people, you know, I've been going hunting in orchards sometimes, and sometimes someone pulls up and is like, "You're not hunting for morels, are you?" I'm like, "Oh no, not me." So it's a delicious mushroom. It fruits out of the ground. It's one of the first wild edibles that comes out, so I think that's part of why people are so excited. Is it's like we've been inside during the whole winter, and now, oh my God, morels are coming. The East Coast and Midwest, the morels that they have typically are fruiting, you know, in association with dying elms, or in association with old apple trees, or just kind of like wherever they want. They're a weird mushroom that just, like, I sometimes find them in ornamental flower beds. The big identification feature is they have a stem and a cap. The cap is kind of hollowed pits, and when you cut the mushroom in half, it's hollow on the inside. There's one mushroom, the false morel, that you might get it confused with, and when you cut it in half and open it, it's not hollow on the inside. So that's kind of your last key identification feature for morel mushrooms. Typically going out in May to find this mushroom here in Massachusetts. There's some really cool websites that show people finding morels as they kind of come up north. So it's starting down in, you know, Georgia, South Carolina, and making their way up the coast. Now on the west coast, it's a completely different species of morel, and they're actually burn morels. So a year after there's a big forest fire, these morels are kind of start fruiting out of the forest floor. And much more abundant, can be found in much greater quantities. And there's a similar thing where it kind of goes up the west coast, starting down in South Carolina and then going up all the way through British Columbia, picking the wild morels and following where the forest fires were the previous year. But similar shape, similar vibe. And this mushroom is really, really good to dehydrate. Something about the dehydration really brings out the flavor profile. So you can buy dehydrated morels, or if you find a lot, just dry them and then rehydrate in warm water for 10 minutes. And you can just I like to cut them in half, keep them in pretty large so they don't get lost, and just saute them or kind of like sear them for 2 or 3 minutes. And the water that you rehydrate with, this is true with any mushroom, the water you can use for making rice or in a broth. Don't just dump that out the drain. That's really, really good, nutritious broth. So your sixth mushroom, Morels. Morchella genus, Morchella esculenta is one of the species of Morels. So those are the 6 to know, to start with. And then you can slowly start building out and understanding more mushrooms that you want to eat and where to find them, how to find them, that whole thing. So I think the key thing to know is just to don't be afraid of mushrooms, and maybe be 100% sure that when you're eating a mushroom, it's the mushroom you think it is. But all mushrooms are safe to touch and even safe to put in your mouth. Just don't swallow. All mushrooms are fine to do that with. So don't be afraid, start engaging with mushrooms, and slowly but surely learn more and more mushrooms. And they'll reveal themselves to you, They'll kind of start being like, ooh, check me out, and want to be in that relationship. So there's a log down here, the stream a little bit, that is prolific with a bunch of different mushrooms. None of them are necessarily edible, but let's stroll down the stream and take a look at those mushrooms. And I can talk a little bit about what to look for when you're doing that identification. Yeah, and one of the things I love about foraging is where you go. It's like, here we are in this beautiful river and just listening to the birds and getting out into nature, and there's really nice food for the soul and medicine for the body just in doing that. So I think we have 5 or 6 different mushroom species on this one log. This is a dead, I'm not sure about the tree species, but dead hardwood, might be a maple, something along those lines. And we have a lot of bracket fungi on here. Now the first one that popped out to me was this orange mushroom. It has kind of a similar color as to what chicken of the woods would. And when you look underneath it, it has these little pores, these little polypores underneath it. It's a little bit more fleshy, and you see that the underside is red, right? So the pores underneath are red. They're not white or yellow like chicken of the woods would be. So this is a cinnabar polypore. Pretty common, just kind of normal mushroom. Fruits, June, July, and can be persistent throughout the year. Now the next one that we have here is, there's actually 2 pretty close together that share a common name of false turkey tail. This one right here has another common name, crowded parchment. And you'll see the kind of colors, there's striated colors on the cap, and underneath it's just kind of papery. I think that's where it gets the parchment color. You can't really see any pores or anything. It's just flat underneath. And that's a key identification to know between turkey tail and something else. Oh, and I just saw this fun guy, a little clay frog with a flower hat. Look at what you find when you're out foraging. Amazing. Underneath here is another false turkey tail, and this one's cool where it has this kind of crust fungus thing going on, where instead of like having a big fruiting body, the mushroom is just like a layer of crust on the bark. So pretty cool crust fungus there. And then up here we have turkey tail proper. So this is from last year, but you'll notice the vibrant coloring. Turkey tail can have a lot of different colors. This one is kind of a blue shade, and it has these alternating zones of coloration on the cap. And also, if you get really close, those zones are furry. Like every other one is kind of furry on the top, and that's pretty unique to turkey tail. Underneath the mushroom is pores, so that's key to identify compared to some of the other false turkey tails, is there's little minute pores on the underside, and sometimes it takes a minute to really see them, you know, but they can have this kind of like hologram effect where you start moving them and you're like, whoa. So pretty fun to do. And turkey tails, when I find them fresh, I like to just kind of chew them as like a gum. They're just like this chewy thing to chew as you're walking around the woods. If you wanted to make medicine out of them, you dry them, make a tea, or make tincture out of them. And then we got this big guy here, also another polypore. Has these kind of different zonation, white, brown mushroom. I think it might be the hairy polypore, or hairy bracket polypore. Not really an edible mushroom, not a poisonous, nothing kind of special. You know, the fungi are always have a key role environmentally, but sometimes they're just like, yeah, nothing special for humans. And a lot of the false turkey tails, you know, turkey tail gets a lot of research, but a lot of the false turkey tails, like the crowded parchment, also are used medicinally and have different compounds that can be used as medicinal benefits for our bodies. So very diverse log, fun to come and look at. Yeah, hope you get out foraging soon, and let me know what you find.